So, Joe, as you know, and all of our listeners know, of course, I've been a huge advocate for student recruitment. And it's very interesting because when we talk about student recruitment, something that we have to kind of leave out of the mix is compensation data, because we really don't have a lot of compensation data for podiatric medicine. And we definitely need that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. We've interviewed a couple people, and separately, I've gotten some communications either through texts or emails, and we don't have solid representative data from a national kind of level. So it's definitely something that I think is hard, because when students ask, we don't have a good representation. There's a massive scale in what you can earn as a podiatric surgeon and physician.
Right. And it's not just students we're recruiting, but how about the residents that are negotiating a new position, or if you're a practice and you're trying to bring in a new practitioner. And then APMA, of course, they're doing efforts on advocacy efforts. So it's always good to have that kind of information.
Yeah, and speaking of APMA, actually today I filled out a survey. So one of the initiatives that they are starting is to try to maybe bridge this gap and get some actual data from providers in terms of what their salary and their compensation looks like. And so there's a survey that's going out, and hopefully people will fill that out transparently and honestly. It's anonymous, so that's nice that, again, you don't have to feel awkward about your pay if that is something that you're carrying with you. But hopefully we can get some answers to tackle this problem head on.
Well, I think that the survey, and it's put out by a company called Merit Health, M-A-R-I-T. And my understanding is it's only been out there for about a week, and they have over 400 respondents already.
Fabulous. Yeah. And you can go to www.apma.org/compensation to participate. I'm sure if you just did a Google search, APMA survey salary, you could probably find it, and share your information. Again, we just were talking about this at our local APMA state meeting. In terms of negotiating contracts, it only takes a couple minutes to answer these questions and get aggregate data if we can get everyone to participate.
Yeah, it's interesting because once you're on the website, you have access to all the other information about what the averages are. And I think in December, they're going to put out kind of the final results. So it's exciting. And like you said, it only takes a couple minutes.
And there's an incentive. We all love incentives, right? So certainly if you fill out the survey, you are entered into a chance to win. I think there's $100 gift cards and a grand prize of $500 gift card. So, 5 minutes of your time, it's a pretty good ROI if you're looking for a quick little boost for some Amazon spending money.
Yep, there you go. And you know what? It's going to be in our show notes, so people can just click on that too.
Perfect. So be sure to visit www.apma.org/compensation and take the survey today.
Thanks, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and co-host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I am doing fabulous and super excited about today's interview. Our guest is joining us in Arizona.
I know. I'm so excited as well. So many fun little tiny connections about how small the profession is.
No doubt about that. Well, I'd like to introduce Dr. Rikesh Patel. Dr. Patel, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're super excited to have you. Thank you for making time. I know you're in Florida right now, and it's almost 8 o'clock on your side of the country. So we appreciate you joining us. And Dr. Patel, we are very informal on Dean's Chat. And if it's okay with you, let's go first names. I know you go by Ricky and Joe and Jeff, if that's okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I'll kick it off with a little more formal introduction. Ricky went to school at the Barry University School of Podiatric Medicine. And Ricky did his residency at Palmetto General in Hialeah, Florida. And then he followed that up with a fellowship in Illinois, which we'll dive into at length. But what I wanted to start out with, Ricky, you're coming to Arizona. You're going to be working with the Indian Health Services in Winslow, Arizona. And I'm tempted to talk about the Eagles in Winslow, Arizona, but I'm not going to.
I think you could play 15 minutes of a song without having copyright issue, or 15 seconds. So we could put a little snippet right through there, Jeff.
Standing on a corner in
That's
Winslow,
right.
Arizona. All right. Well, so Ricky, let's start with the end here. So you were at fellowship. You were with Dr. Picaccio in Illinois, and you were looking for jobs and trying to figure out your next step. Share with us how it played out that you ended up with Indian Health Services.
Yeah, so I started fellowship back in August of 2024. I was actually originally, I had no intentions of moving anywhere but Florida. Uh, but Dr. Picaccio, we went to like a lunch or something, and he's just sitting there on his phone, and I'm just like, I just met him, so I'm like still kind of nervous talking to him. He's Dr. Picaccio, man, the myth, the legend. And then he's like, "Would you work in Arizona?" And I'm like, "Maybe. I don't know why." And he's like, "I might have a job for you in Arizona." So didn't really think anything of it. He's good friends with Dr. Keith Goss, who was actually his mentor and his chief resident back in residency. And I talked to him about the job a couple weeks later, and still wasn't totally sold on it. But he's like, why don't you come out here and check it out? And I was like, okay, let's see. I still had my heart set on going back home to Florida, and I did my interview there. And at first, I drove through Winslow. I was like, man, this is a really tiny town. And from Winslow, I'm actually going to be also working in Dilcon, which is on the reservation itself. So it's literally like desert. I'm from Florida, so we got water views and forests and things like that. So that was a little bit different. But when I got there, the people there were just so sweet. They were so nice. Such a need for podiatry, especially on the reservations. They were super friendly with me. Dr. Goss and Dr. Topik, who's the other who will be essentially my boss, are the two podiatrists that work for them, and they've been very welcoming. And at that point, I made a decision to take the job there and see what the West Coast has to offer. And I have a lot of family in Arizona, so that was a big thing for me. I moved to Chicago from Florida. I had no family in Chicago, so Arizona will be nice because I have a lot of family in New Mexico, California, and Phoenix.
It's fantastic. Joe, your thoughts?
Oh man, so many things, Ricky. And it's such a small world. When I was a student here at Midwestern, we had the opportunity to do rotations through IHS that was with Keith Goss, and that's how I met Doug Picaccio for the first time. So it's so funny, right? Like all these little connections. I'm curious. You've had the opportunity to be out here. You have some family here. When you were a student and you were kind of looking at this kind of life plan, I know this was not necessarily where you had kind of anticipated you would be, but what advice would you give students? Jeff and I are right now in the process of counseling students on where to go for externships, how to think about your life from a being as open-minded about where you may end up. We've just interviewed another person who said they matched somewhere and this was not at all where I had expected, but was the best thing that happened in her life. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the advice you might give to either a resident or a student in terms of opportunities and how to think about those opportunities or trade-offs and opportunity cost?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, I'm very non-traditional. I did my medical school down in Barrie. I did 3 years of residency. I had applied for fellowship and I didn't get it the first time, so I practiced for two
Okay.
years before I went back. Um, I got the opportunity to work with Dr. Picaccio. It was, essentially you go from making an attending salary back to a fellow salary. But in the year I spent in Illinois, it was the best decision I ever made. So, I had my life planned out from this is what I'm going to do every year is planned out. I'm going to do a fellowship, I'm going to do a practice, I'm going to be a partner. But, life has things that will maybe roadblock you a little bit, but you go around and you may find a different route that's much better. And in my opinion, I mean, everything that at first I was a little, skeptical even doing a fellowship. I mean, I was 2 years out in practice. Like, what would a fellowship actually teach me? And it was the best year I've ever had. I met amazing people. Dr. Piccaccio's my mentor. I still talk to him to this, it's only been a month or two, but I still call him. And if there's ever anything I need, he'll be the first one to pick up the phone. So,
I-
you're gonna hit things. It may not be what you planned out, but if you're a religious person, I'm a little bit more religious than I was a year ago. But God has a plan for you, and, let him take the reins and see where you're going to end up.
Yeah, I love that. It's so funny sometimes, and I can also reflect on that, just thinking of my own life. The best things that had happened were things that were not at all what I would have planned for myself. But looking back, it's so nice to have those. Though you can see those venture points that are like, you know what, that made such a huge impact in such a positive trajectory that in that moment, that is not at all how I felt about it. So I was curious, kind of your experience as well.
Yeah.
I have a guest here. Her name's
Oh, look at
Denali.
that.
She's been sitting nice and quiet on the chair, and now she's like, "Hey, I need some attention." So
It's the
say
first
hi,
time
Denali.
Denali has actually, yes, become a
Oh,
guest. So welcome.
I'm I'm a huge dog person. My dog's not here, but he would definitely be right next to me if he was here with me.
Yeah, she's a little Maltese. She's precious. She's so gentle, and but when she wants attention, she lets you know. You know how that goes. I'm gonna keep her on my lap during this discussion,
Oh yeah.
or at least on my table here.
What kind of dog do you have, Ricky?
I have a 4-year-old Australian Shepherd named Dosa.
Oh,
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh.
Yeah. You guys will see him in Arizona. He's moving up
Yeah.
with me, so
Oh, awesome.
he's gonna be a little mountain dog. I can't wait.
I find this interesting that you did the residency at Palmetto, and then you went into practice, and then you did fellowship. That's a huge leap, Ricky. Not a lot of people do that.
Yeah, yeah. I've had a lot of people, especially a lot of I think when I was at AACFAS, especially, that were asking me, like, like, would you do it again? And it's intimidating at first, because you're like, how much of a leap are you willing to take for that? But I mean, it was such a great experience. I recommend anybody and everybody do it. Um, where I was at my point in at the point of my life I was in, I just wasn't um I would say I wasn't really happy with where I was at that point in my life. When you come out of residency, you're told not to, don't say no, work, all the stuff that you don't learn as a resident or even as a young attending, you're not going to learn until you've experienced it. And I mean, I was like the only doctor on call. So I would take all the trauma, all the gas, all the, anything foot and ankle that came in, it usually went to me, and you kind of just burn yourself out. So I did get to a point where it was like, you know, I need to do something else different in my life to try to, make myself essentially fall in love with the profession. Because I was at a point where, I was just not about podiatry. I was like, I think I should just drop and do something else, maybe something that's a little bit more less demanding. But, the 1 year I spent in Illinois, it was hard. I had long hours, but man, I had so much fun. I love being a doctor again.
Wow, that's fabulous. I'm going to let my dog out for a sec. I'll be back in a minute. You continue, please.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's also knowing Doug and having someone like a mentor to help reignite that passion. Because you're right. You know, I have these mixed feelings about this advice that we give young people, like, oh, say yes to everything. I don't think that's very good advice. I think we are setting people up for frustration. Um, Now, the flip side to that, and which is why I'm not like adamantly opposed to it, is you never know which opportunities are going to be the ones that bring that joy or reignite this passion. If you were to give someone advice, Ricky, let's say someone that's fairly, because those first 2 years out of practice are very humbling in terms of that honeymoon phase is over. The
Mhm.
hardship really does start. You don't have the people there. What advice would you give them if they're starting to feel a little bit of that burnout? How would you kind of motivate them or inspire?
One thing that I tell a lot of my friends that are, we're about 3 years out since I graduated. Um, it's nice to do all those things and um, take call, and if you have the stamina for it, by all means do it. But you need to also understand, like, you need to have a life. You need to find a balance in life. I mean, I never took a vacation for 2 years. I never pretty much had days off. I think I got sick maybe once. But you have to realize, like, you're human. You can't do everything, unfortunately. And that was something, it took me almost a year and a half, maybe a year and like 8 months to kind of understand that I can't save everybody and I can't be the only one doing everything.
Yeah.
And once you get that realization, that's when you kind of understand, like, there's more to it. Like, yeah, we're doctors, we take our oath, we love our patients, we love what we do, but we can't be there 24/7. You know, there's other doctors, there's other specialists that are there to kind of help offload that. And if you want to be a superhero, you know, by all means, if you got the stamina, I know some doctors that are work, and they love what they do and they love being in the hospital, and more power to them. But that's not everybody, you know, and you got to know your limits. That's the biggest thing. And most people don't know their limits, and then that's when they burn out.
And sometimes that first exposure to what are my limits are when you've hit your limit and it's like, how do you recover? And so
Mhm.
it's been interesting too, talking with some of the students, you know, it, if you think about the equivalent of like an athlete, you couldn't ask an athlete to, or a Peloton equivalent, if those of you out there that are the Peloton people, you couldn't go at 100% all the time. Like you just can't run at a sprint level forever. You will, like, your body will fatigue. And our mindset and our mental health is the same. And so figuring out what that balance, because you're right, everyone's, I hate the word balance, but everyone's mix of what that looks like is different.
Mhm.
And so kind of finding the ways to feed into what you need in that restoration phase. We had a psychologist on by the name of Dr. Sotil, who specializes in physician resilience and really helping people with burnout. And I appreciate his definition of burnout, which is essentially burnout happens when your normal period of restoration doesn't happen in the time that you've given, right? So I mean, it could happen in so many places. And you're a young professional, you have a whole career ahead of you. And so how can we help young people build in opportunities to come back up for air, but um, not coddle them and not disincentivize them to work, maybe is another way to think of it, because that's the flip side that you hear from people that are like, oh no, go 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 and say yes to everything. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that's something that I've been trying to ponder for the last year and a half. And, you know, it's a very difficult thing because everybody has different limits. I went to Palmetto General. We were very militaristic. I mean, we were up 4 a.m. pre-round, round at 5, 6 o'clock, update our attendings by 7, start surgery at 7:30. I mean, it was like that every single day up for almost up to 2 years, and then third year you get a little bit of a laxity, but then you're the one running all the surgeries at that point. Um, you know, I think being a surgical specialty, you know, we have that stigma that maybe time off isn't a thing. And I took time off in residency until my third year when I went to an AACFAS. That was like the first time I went anywhere, like I went somewhere, you know, because you're just so like you're like, oh, if I'm not there, then maybe the whole system will crumble. Like I was chief resident too, so it's like, oh crap, if I'm not there, like are the other residents going to step up? Are they, you know, you think about all those things, but you as a person, you have to understand where your limits are. I mean, don't make excuses because you don't want to do it. Not wanting to do it versus overworking are two different things that, you know. And I think if you've overdone it, you know, talk to somebody. I used to talk to my attendings a lot. Um, and see how it can navigate those. I mean, I'm best friends with my co-residents still to this day. So, you know, having someone to talk to, having a good mentor or good mentors in your residency or even fellowship is good. And you know, nowadays I feel like we're kind of making a new leaf, giving residents and even fellows. Um, you know, I would say I'm not from back in the day, but I'm sure back in the 80s when my at least when 80s and 90s when my residency and my fellowship directors were training, you know, you couldn't say no. Like nowadays it's kind of like, you know, you got to know when to say no because I mean, you know, nobody's going to look after your health except yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the one, you don't want to wait till it's too late and then you
Yeah.
kind of just like, you know, pass out or you kind of just burn out or you give up. I mean, you know, those are, I wish there was a system. I'm sure hopefully we can think of stuff and I've been trying to think of ways, but you know, I think talking to somebody, maybe taking some time off. Don't just be working 24/7. When you have your time off, take the time off. I used to shut my phone off when I was off. Like I literally said, don't call me. Unless someone's dying, only one person's allowed to contact me, and that's the one person that I will listen to. Otherwise, anybody else, I would not answer the phone just because I needed that mental space.
I like that, Ricky, because if you don't put up boundaries, nobody, like to your point, nobody's going to put them up for you.
Mhm.
You know, it's interesting though, because we are trained in, you know, part of the medical way is to, drink from the proverbial fire hose from day one of medical school. You remember it at Barry, and Joe, you did it here at Arizona, and I did it in California. I mean, it was like, okay, the party's over. We're pushing the go button, and there was never taking your foot off the gas unless it was like Christmas break or something. So I think our students, Joe, we see it all the time. They, after boards, for example, they'll come in and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe 2 years went by already, and we passed boards." And they're like, "I'm not even the same person I was 2 years ago." So they're getting trained up to that don't say no mentality. So I agree with you, Ricky. There's got to be some changes, and Dr. Sotil was right. I mean, the physician resiliency is huge. With you hate to see our colleagues going through difficulties and having to reset, and work-life harmony, as we say, Joe, is so important. So I'm with you, Ricky. I mean, we see it in our students all the time, and it's very stressful.
And I think a
And
lot of it is also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I think a
No, we
lot
want
of
to
it
hear
is
from you.
a lot of it is also like your upperclassmen and alumni, because like I remember when I started residency, and I mean I think obviously every year thinks they had a tough year, like, oh, we had the hardest year. But then you hear from like some of these other, like some of my attendings a lot of my attendings were actually graduates from when I was in residency. Like, oh yeah, like I remember when I was a resident, and you guys have no idea what it's like to not this, like when you get that, those storytellings. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of cool. You're like, oh man, they were so great. They were so like, they were gangsters. Like they did everything. They could do everything. And they're also the people that you look up to, but it also kind of, you don't want to let them down. So like, you don't want to take time off, because guess what? They never took time off, and you want to be as great as they are. So I think we as a profession, especially a lot of our older and even our recent graduates, like, yeah, you may have had a different experience. It may have been harder, it may have been longer hours, but I think, tell your underclassmen or your residents or fellows, yeah, it was tough, but we got through it. And it's something that you're gonna have to go through, but if you need us, we'll be there for you. And I think a couple of my attendings who were actually non-podiatrists were the ones that actually would kind of give us that feedback. I mean, my mentor in residency, who's still to this day my probably one of my biggest inspirations in surgery, was an orthopedic surgeon who literally just graduated from fellowship. And first day I scrubbed in with him in an AKA, and I did hips, knees, shoulders, everything with him, and he was always there. If I needed something, he'd be the first call, and he'd be like, "All right, come to my house. We'll grab a drink. We'll talk about it." So find that mentor, but also for some of the older guys, kind of ease up a little bit. Like, yeah, you guys have good war stories, but these kids are going through it. You know how it was. Don't make it seem like you had it the hardest, because I'm sure the year before you had it the hardest, and the year before them had it harder. So, we're trying to evolve as a profession, and we need to evolve with the times.
Also, if you think about it, think about the volume of information that you have in any of our classes, right? It could be pharm, it could be biochem, it could be anything. The knowledge that is present today compared to 20 or 30 years ago is immense. And so you can only put so much information on slides for an exam. So
Okay.
you're absolutely right. I'm with
I,
you.
I worked with Dr. McInerney. He was my other fellowship director, and he had a guy in his group. He was like, when I was a podiatrist back then, Dwyer had first published his paper. So back then there was no email, there was no internet. So he literally had to handwrite a letter to Dwyer and told him like, hey, like, how do you do this osteotomy? And Dwyer literally sent back like diagrams and a letter on how to do the osteotomy. I mean, information is just so crazy at the rate we're at now.
Now we
And
just
that was
click.
back in, yeah. Now we just
Now we
click.
click on YouTube. Let's watch.
Exactly.
That's craziness. Joe, this is bringing back memories for me, but it's also very real in our students' lives right now in residence.
Yeah, and it's Ricky, you brought up a good point. What we see often too, and certainly something that I remember getting, and in the moment of getting it, feeling like this, I appreciate what you're telling me, but it is not helpful to me, right? Like, oh, you residents, you have it so easy. This 120-hour work week. Do you know how? And they weren't wrong, the things that they had to go through, but it didn't change the things that are hard in the person, whoever is feeling these challenges, it didn't change the fact that, yes, what you went through was hard, but what I'm going through is also hard. There are different things that I do that you didn't have to deal with, right? So that is always a really touchy thing, because obviously when you're interacting with someone who's wanting to provide that kind of feedback, they're not going to be the one that's going to engage in an empathetic conversation. And it reminds me of, there was an AACFAS track once, kind of on wellness, and I remember someone in the audience stood up, and he was in some higher administrative part of the hospital, and he's like, I just don't know what you young people want from us. Like, we give you a wellness app, and we give you this, free, pizza Fridays, and like, what is it that you want? And it was funny because I was fairly young in my career when this person had this conversation, and I remember kind of thinking to myself, like, what do we want? Like, how would you even put this into words? And later I remember wrapping my head around it. We just want support, and support looks different for everyone. Maybe support, Ricky, to your point, is, hey, look, we've noticed you haven't taken any of your vacation time. Maybe you should carve out some time to just get away, and doing it preventative, like doing it before you hit that point of a limit where, to your point, I've had my own burnout experience where, like, I was ready to quit and be like, and you had mirrored that, Ricky, where it was like, maybe I should be doing something else because I'm feeling that far stuck in this. And I also wasn't taking vacation time. I was taking a ton of call. I was doing all of the yes things, but then saying no to all of the things that actually mattered. And that intentionality, we need support, and we need people to support us in making those decisions. And sometimes that looks like a career move, but more often it just looks like a job change. Like, maybe I need to change locations. So I'm curious, since you had a change in location, what were some of the things that you experienced with Dr. Piccaccio that were inspiring to you in a fellowship type setting?
Oh man, that's a lot.
Well, we
Dr.
had deep thoughts with Doug, because Doug is
Yeah.
filled with all kinds of wonderful insights, not just podiatric. But I'd be curious, again, having spent a whole year getting to hang out with him, some of the things that
So
really stuck with you.
so I've told him this story, so I know when he watches this, he'll know. But when I first met him, I literally thought he hated me. Like he literally was. I mean, if you've ever met Dr. Picacci, he's super nice once you get to know him. But if you first haven't met him, he's kind of intimidating. I mean, he's a total Midwesterner, and so like the first couple weeks, he barely talked to me. Or if he did, he would like expect me to know. It's like, you should know this. How come you don't know this? Like, why did I pick you as my fellow? And I'm like, oh my God, this guy hates me. And and so after a couple weeks, I think he invited me to his house for dinner. And he's like, so like, do you have any questions about the fellowship? Like he started talking to me like a normal person. And I was like, yeah, like not to be like that guy, but like, are you sure you picked the right guy for this fellowship? And he's like, Ricky, if I didn't want you here, you would not be in my house eating dinner with me and my family. So after that, I kind of eased up a little bit. I got more, with him. I mean, I've talked everything with Dr. Piccaccio. We've talked about life, we've talked about politics, we've talked about marriage. I mean, he literally called me a couple weeks ago about like if about like, when I get married and stuff like that. He's like, make sure she's the right one. He's like, I found the right one. I have 2 kids with her. And he's like, I'm happy. He's like, make sure you find the right one. I mean, he's been such a big supporter of just everything. Even when I took the job with Keith, I mean, he was so happy. He's the first person I told other than my parents. And I mean, the dynamic with me and him was just, I mean, I was kind of like his right hand man. And same thing with Dr. McEnany. I mean, I don't think he's been on the podcast yet, but Dr. McEnany has been such a huge a mentor with me too. I mean, I practiced, but man, I didn't realize how wrong I practiced until I met him. I mean, he's a billing guru. I know how to bill. I know how to talk to patients. You know, I think even just being able to talk to patients, even trying to tell them, hey, like for something simple as a hammer toe, it's an art. You're trying to tell them like, hey, this is something you can do. Okay, fine. You don't want to do it. These are 10 other things that we can do before we have to decide to, do it. So from McEnany, I did learn a lot of business acumen, as well as like, just being able to talk to patients, people, business. I mean, even discussing with reps and stuff like that. I mean, he runs like a 17 practice group. So, I mean, he knows how to do all that. So but both of their combined styles, um, I mean, I had a post on when I first graduate or when I graduated from fellowship was I'm not just a better, doctor and a surgeon, but I'm a much better person coming out of the fellowship. I mean, I learned so much. I mean, Dr. Picassio's taking me shooting. I've never like done like shooting before. We did target practice. I've done camping with him. Um, Dr. Picaccio is a big car guy, so taught me about more about cars and F1 and all that sort of stuff. And just taught me so much, taught me how to be a better teacher. Like we had residents and teaching them, it wasn't always like, oh yeah, I'm the fellow, so I'm taking the knife and I'm starting the case. Most of the time, if it was especially something like a nail or something, I've done so many of those. I'd be like, all right, resident, you're up, and I kind of walk them through it. And same thing with totals and stuff like that. I mean, and they were both very patient. Like they knew what I knew coming in. I told them, I don't never done total ankle. I've never done half of these reconstructions. I know this and I know that. And they played on what I was weaknesses on, and now they're my strengths.
I love hearing that, Ricky. Kind of an informal question we ask people that have done fellowships is, how much did that vault you ahead in your career? I don't know how to explain it exactly, but do you feel like you're 5 years further than you would have been had you not done a fellowship, or might you have never have reached where you're going if you hadn't done a fellowship?
Based on where I was at skill wise, especially since I was a COVID resident, we kind of
Yes.
did get cut down. Um, I'd say about 5 to 10 years. I've catapulted in my career, and not just surgically, but the connections I made, the people I've met. You know, knowing how to do all these complex surgeries that many people probably don't know how to do, or it's kind of like not really taught because it's just not like, especially where I was in Miami, we did a lot of fusions, a lot of ankle fractures, and as you guys know, those don't typically pay as much. Not to be like about money, but you got to find other ways around it. You got to make a living as well. So I did learn a lot of these techniques that I was like, oh man, I wish, like I look back a year ago and I was like, man, if I remember this patient, I should have done this or I should have done that. And like now I know how to treat it. So it's a like people say, it's a practice of medicine. You get better every time. You're never going to be a master at it, but you'll get better with time. And like with your question, I'd say at least 5 to 10 years I've pushed I've leaped forward in my career.
Joe, that's a common theme.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your point, Ricky, of like even just knowing how to talk to someone, that is a skill that if you can condense that down and help a patient understand what their options are, what they're signing up for, what surgery can't do, what it can do, that does, if you didn't see that modeled as much in residency, learning that on your own is challenging. And so having the opportunities to engage not just in your skill acquisition but everything else as well in a fellowship, I can definitely see that as a catapult.
Oh yeah, and even giving news, like if you're,
Mm.
for example, we did a surgery and we go in there, we go in thinking one thing and then we have to
Yeah.
go in and do something different. How do you come out of the case and explain to the family like, hey, we may have to take him back, or we messed up and we got to do that, and or not we messed up, but like it's just not right.
This
Like
wasn't what we expected. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
we have literally scrubbed out together and gone and talked to the family and be like, hey, we're gonna do this surgery. He's gonna have to come back in a few weeks and we're gonna have to do it. And coming out of residency, I did that one time, and thank God the boss that I had was able to help me kind of coach me through it with the patient. But even if the screw, like for example, if your screw is too long or if it's hitting the joint in the x-rays, x-rays don't ever read correctly, especially mini C-arms, and you come out and you take a weight bearing x-ray a week later and you're like, holy crap, it's in the joint, like what am I going to do? Or maybe it's too short or maybe it's too long. You got to be able to tell the patient, hey, we got to take you back for a quick swap. So that was definitely a thing that I learned, um being with both Mac and Pocaccio. Things don't always go your way. Staging is important, and just being able to tell the truth. Don't lie. Don't say, oh, like, don't try to cover your mess up. Just be like, hey, we went in, we weren't expecting this. We have to go back, and we want to correct you. We want to make sure that you're the best we can make you without, causing future problems.
Yeah.
I agree totally. Ricky, can we shift gears a little bit? I followed you on social media way before Elton introduced us. Is that like a hobby for you, being on social media, and is that like a source of like relaxation? I'm just curious.
So I actually, when I started fellowship, I actually stopped all social media for about 6 months.
Okay.
I got back on back in March, but yeah, I try to be on social media. I think it's fun. It's a good getaway, especially with when you're working. It's just I get a laugh. I get laughs, and my family's on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So we send each other, we'll send each other memes and gifs and things like that. So yeah, it's a big thing for me.
In your handle.
Yes, Dr. Pretty Ricky.
Yeah, I love it. Pretty Ricky. I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. Okay, sounds good. So tell us about your relationship with Alton.
So Alton was he was a chief resident when I was a third year student. He was over at Aventura Hospital.
Okay.
So I didn't know I had no idea who he was until I started rotating there. And he was I think he had just started his third year. And so, I feel like we clicked pretty quickly. He was one of the programs that were in my top three because I wanted to stay in Florida. But I kept in touch with Alton all throughout the years. I've met him at AACFAS. I've even texted him a couple times if I've had. He's a big wound care guy, as we all know. So if there's a wound, it's typically he's the first person I'm texting or messaging. Hey, like, what do you think I should do? So we've kept up, and then he kind of texted me. He's like, "Hey, like Dr. Jensen's interested in doing a podcast with you in it," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to. Like, here's my number, here's my email. Feel free to add me, and we can set this up." So yeah, he's been great. I still follow him on like LinkedIn and all that, and Instagram, Facebook. So we see each other at stuff because I know he's over in Michigan now, but yeah, that's kind of how our relationship's been.
Joe and I interviewed Alton, and he's just a ball of energy. He's got so many things going on. I just think he's a wonderful mentor for students in the profession and
Yeah.
practitioners.
He's very sweet. I mean, no matter what time of day, if I text or call, he answers back. He's never once been like, I'm not going to help you. Even if I didn't know him, I bet you if I sent him a text, he'd be the first person to be like, yeah, like let me see if I can get something.
Absolutely.
So he's always willing to give a helping hand.
Absolutely. Joe, any last thoughts or questions before we hit the rapid fires?
Yeah, before we go into that, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and then yes, we can dive into some of the fun questions.
Did you know APMA provides help with public health initiatives such as fall prevention, opioid abuse prevention, and addressing health disparities?
Did you know the APMA provides over $400,000 in scholarships annually to students pursuing podiatric medicine, helping the next generation of foot and ankle specialists?
If you're serious about this profession, if you want to grow, to lead, to make a lasting impact, join APMA today.
All right, we're back. All right, so Ricky, this is when we get to kind of get down to the fun, kind of silly personality kind of questions. So I'll kick it off first with, tell us about something that you did when you were a kid that you loved doing that maybe you don't do anymore, or maybe you do still do. What was a passion from childhood?
So I was a big video game guy. That's how kind of me and my cousins and brothers kind of got along. We'd always fight and argue, but when it came to video games, we were all on it. I don't play as much nowadays because I'm an adult now, but I do have.
I know lots of adults that still very much play video games.
Yeah. No, I mean I play now and then like with my brother, but sometimes I'll play if just to kind of unwind. I have a PlayStation, so I'll turn that up and play like Madden or something like that. but that was probably the biggest thing. And then sports too. You know, I grew up with like two brothers and two cousins, and it was just all boys growing up until my sister was born. So sports and video games were a big thing.
I love that. What was your favorite video game as a kid?
Mario Kart 64.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic.
We still have the N64 that my cousin had, and we still play it.
Yeah. My husband just found his original Nintendo, like with the old cassettes,
Yep,
blow
that's
in
the one
there.
he has.
Yep.
And you gotta put the three
So,
you gotta put the three prongs in the TV, so we had to get a special TV
right?
for it.
Yep.
Yep.
So classic.
That's fabulous. All right, Ricky. So, what did you love about Chicago when you moved there, having come from Florida?
Chicago was, I think the people there were just so nice. I think the food was great too. I'm a big foodie, but it was just so easy, like meeting people and talking to people. I didn't have as bad of a transition as I thought I was going to have. You know, the people that I did end up meeting there, the reps, the residents, my attendings, you know, they all kind of just became my extended family. Like I think every weekend I was either hanging out with Dr. Boccaccio or Dr. McEnany or one of the reps. I'd go to their house and have dinner with them, or you know, go into the city and kind of hang out. And that was kind of the the best thing, or you know, the things that I found that were great about Illinois. I mean, I left and I was like, oh man, do I really want to leave this place? Like, it's so amazing. And then I realized, well, in 2 months it's gonna snow, so I need to get out of here.
Fair enough. That's fair. Yeah, of course, the price you pay for 70 to 80 degrees in January is what we've lived through the last few months here in Arizona.
It's a dry heat.
It's dry, like my oven
Yeah.
when I make
Yeah.
pizzas. Yep.
Like a blow dryer. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, your turn, Joe.
All right. So you mentioned food. Let's say
Mhm.
we were going somewhere in Chicago out to dinner. What kind of food would you pick? What's your favorite?
So I am a big Asian food guy.
Mm.
So I found a lot of good restaurants, especially in Chinatown. And like, I don't know if you guys have ever had Korean barbecue,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's like one of my all-time favorite foods to eat. And I found a couple places there that are like Korean barbecue or hot pot.
Mm.
So there's a few spots that I found down there that I've really liked. And when I go back, there's one called Happy Lamb that just opened, and I'm like dying to try it.
Awesome.
Do you like kimchi?
I love kimchi.
Really?
Yes.
See,
Yeah,
I've been to Korea a bunch, and I'm not into kimchi, but I love the barbecue.
I love Asian food. So like it's always been my thing. Sushi, ramen, pho, all that stuff. It's been my like I will ditch the pizza in Chicago for the Asian food there. It's so good.
Okay, my turn, Joe.
Yep.
So we're going to take gaming out of the equation here. But what do you do to recharge your battery, Ricky, when you're not working all the time or thinking about work?
So recently I got back into traveling. So I recently just got back from Iceland for my birthday.
Oh,
So
right on.
I did a solo trip for about 5 days,
Oh.
and I kind of just rented a car and went all around the Golden Circle and the eastern and southern coast, and then got back. And last weekend I went to Vegas. So traveling is really big in my life. So I love traveling.
That's fantastic. So what do you like to do I'm sorry, Joe. I'm doing a
No, you're good.
piggyback. What do you like to
That's
do in
okay.
Vegas?
Vegas, we did the Sphere, and we
yeah.
did the Awakening show. And then we played craps at the $10 tables, and we won. So
Hey, all right.
I didn't leave a loser. That was great.
So who was at the Sphere?
It was Cascade.
Okay.
He's a DJ. I don't know. I only went for the experience because they show like a 1.5 hour, 2 hour movie,
Yeah.
which is like with the music. So it was a good time. If you check out my Instagram, it'll be the recent post. And it's like lights and lasers. It was a cool experience.
Did you bring Dramamine?
No, I actually was fine. I don't usually get motion sickness or anything like that, so I was having a good time.
I went to see the Eagles one of the opening nights when they opened the Sphere, and I was just not feeling good. The motion
No.
sickness for sure. I was like the stage was moving and stuff.
Yeah. I got a little bit dizzy for like a second, but then like I kind of bounced back pretty quick.
Oh.
But yeah, I can see like what you're talking about.
All right, Joe. Sorry, I took like 3 questions there.
That's okay. Anytime we were talking about fully immersive music experiences such as the Sphere, I will happily listen. On the music note, Ricky, all right, so you get to finally pick them. Well, not finally. You had a chance to pick your own music for a while in the OR, but you get to pick it again. What kind of
Yes.
music are you listening to in the OR?
So I'm pretty open, but depends on the surgery. So usually when I did trauma, it was always some sort of like hype hip hop and rap. If I did any sort of recon bunions, it was Michael Jackson.
Oh,
I have a
nice.
Michael Jackson playlist. King of Pop, I loved
Ah.
it. Depending on who was in the OR, sometimes the nurses are a little bit more PG. So then I would play just more like regular pop music. I've tried to get a little bit more onto country since I've been in Illinois, because I know we listen to it a lot, and now that I've trained with Dr. Boccaccio, we've been listening to a lot more rock. So, um, you know, anything that's hype in rock music, I tend to listen to when I do more recon work now.
But you'll still have to blast a couple Billie Jeans just 'cause. Why not?
Oh, just cause, why not? Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
That's great. Well, Ricky, thank you so much for carving out time and joining us on Dean's Chat. It's just been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
We're going to send you a Dean's Chat mug that you can drink your
Oh,
favorite beverage out of.
that's awesome.
They're
Thank you.
big enough that they can be evening beverages too.
Perfect.
It's a great size.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, any last words?
No, thank you so much, Ricky, for taking your time today to come talk with us and our audience about your experiences. And so excited about having you closer to us. And we'll probably be in touch, figure out some fun hands-on things that we can kind of like hook you in to come hang out with our students.
Anytime you guys need me for anything. I love teaching. I love students, residents, anything. So we're more than welcome. And, definitely we'll keep in touch with Keith and Ksenia and see if maybe we can get them on if you guys are interested in
Yeah,
having them on.
so I mean, we've been in talks. So
Perfect.
I'm
That'd be awesome.
excited. I'm excited for it because the two of them would be just such a wonderful representation of serving and supporting that community. They've both devoted their lives to it. So I think they would be really inspirational.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we'll take you up on coming down and interfacing with our students.
Yes.
That just sounds like a great opportunity for them to learn about what you're doing and where you've been. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating, or even better, leave a couple comments. And if you're watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to become a subscriber. Joe and I will continue to bring leaders in the podiatric profession, and we are so grateful for Ricky, Dr. Patel joining us tonight. Thank you. We look forward to you moving to Arizona, and that's incredible, the opportunity with Indian Health Services. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, cheers, everybody. See you next week. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.